And we are back.
We are back, bumble bitches.
Episode 28 of season 2 of the To Be Better podcast.
Chugging along.
Yep. We are
Doing the
recording
thing.
live for our Patreon today. So for those of you who are a member of our Patreon that joined in, thank you for being here. We will get to the chat after the episode. For those of you who are listening on Spotify or YouTube after the recording, I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I am still recovering from my illness from Vegas. There's a whole lot of struggle to breathe and cough and not die. So that's the thing. All right. So talk about it. Talk about your new favorite thing.
We got a motorcycle, guys. It's my husband's motorcycle. It's painted. The paint job is whiskey neat. And in the sunlight, it's just like a...
Burnt orange.
No, it reminds me of like a honey river that flows downstream for fairies to live off of. The color is very nice.
Okay.
And yesterday, we had our date day. It was so much fun. We went to the dealership. My husband picked out what he wanted. We looked around for me and found a couple of
Options.
some bodies that I like. Definitely going to go with a smaller bike because I am a smaller person. And I'm not going to be able, I don't have confidence in lifting 800 pounds off the ground. We also decided that it's going to be custom pink. And I want to get white wall tires. It's going to look so good.
That's funny.
And we got home, took a little nap. We went for a ride.
We got home and I hit the couch and fell asleep immediately.
Yeah. And it was one of the longer naps. You're usually a 15 to 20 minute
Yeah.
nap guy.
No, not yesterday.
About an hour and a half. But so then we went for a ride. We rode out to the beach. It was about 30-minute ride, 45 minutes.
45.
Yeah. And
It's about 80 miles round trip.
I wore no helmet. We did the thing. I wore no helmet and I let my hair just go in the wind. It was so matted this morning. I didn't even brush it when we got home last night. There was so much sun on me. My body was so tired and the wind. I felt it in my neck last night while you were talking about that wind exhaustion.
It's exhausting.
Oh my gosh. There were points where I would just lay my head on your shoulder just to give my neck a rest. And oh gosh, the feeling of the wind in my hair. I started crying on the bike.
No, did you really?
I did. And feeling my tears whip past me in the wind. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm saying a lot because I'm talking about something that makes me excited and it's done with you and you make me nervous.
Yeah.
Your life is so cool and I get to be cool by proxy and it's great.
We've had a whole lot of interactions with people over the last 3 weeks.
We have.
We have been recognized every single time we've left the house.
Multiple times.
Even last night when we made it to the beach where we were hanging out for the sunset, we were recognized by 2 other people on bikes.
Yep. That was really dope. I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah.
My husband walked over because it was a couple. Husband had his motorcycle, could tell he's been riding for a while. And then his woman had a smaller bike, and you were questioning if it was the Grom.
Yeah.
Right? And she was also just getting into riding, and it was neat.
Cool little experience for
It was
sure.
a dope little experience.
I have a lot of things that I want to talk about, but I don't think I'm ready to talk about them. So we could probably just jump into some emails and then
Okay.
maybe by the time we're done with this episode and get into the one that we're going to do right after this one, because we're going to record 2 episodes today, I might be ready to hash out that thought process.
Okay. You just want to jump into it?
Sure. Let's do some problem solving.
So this is a Patreon email. And for those of you listening, we do expedite the Patreon emails.
Yep.
They are paying monthly for our attention. So if it is something that we believe will add value, it will get bumped up into the line. If that's something that you're interested in, we have links all over the place. I promise you'll find it somewhere. Just To Be Better Podcast. Click that. Maybe on YouTube, it's in the description.
It is.
I'm assuming on Spotify and other various streaming platforms.
It's not on any of those.
No. tobebetter.co.
Yep.
Website's a little, hello, where can I send you to? Operator. That's what I'm looking for. I had to take on the personality to remember the name. I might start doing that because it hit me instantly.
I am so fucking excited for D&D tonight. You doing that just now, and you're like, I might take on that personality. I'm like, role play.
Yes. I've already started practicing a little bit this morning.
Yeah.
I've been working on voices. I don't know if I want to try for an accent. I'm not good at them. But I think a little fairy with a really thick, like, Jersey accent would be funny.
I'm going to. So there's the movie called A Streetcar Named Desire.
Okay.
It is a Marlon Brando film from the 50s. And in that movie, the woman who is his supporting actress is a theatrical performer. That's her family. Her entire family are theater performers.
Okay.
Who's getting into movies. And Marlon Brando is a method actor who gets into character and lives in that character.
Kind of like Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, or Val Kilmer. There's a whole lot of guys.
Okay.
Like Val Kilmer, when he recorded The Doors, he went and lived in the mansion where they recorded the LA Woman album, I think.
Really?
But he lived there, and he lived as Jim Morrison. He wore those same leather pants for like 27 days straight without changing them. Like he really went into the Jim Morrison character.
I think that's so cool.
I do too. I mean, I'm a big fan of Jim Morrison anyways,
Right.
but that's a whole different discussion. Anyways, there's a scene in there where she's talking and you can see her talking to him and she's really overacting. And he just looks like he doesn't give a fuck about anything. He's chewing gum and he's talking to her and he's like, brah, scaring her. Like, you just doing it. That's how I want to method act my character if we play D&D. I don't know if I'm going to do it the entire time at the table, but my fear is getting too into that character and not being able to snap out of that character.
Oh no, I see that with our borderline too.
Yeah. Taking on
man.
that persona and actually living that persona could be a bad thing.
And then not being able to differentiate between us and them. Mental illness for the win. I love that we can have these conversations though.
It's fun.
It is fun. All right. So getting into the email, Patreon, broken trust and ignoring growth. I, 23 female, have been with my boyfriend, 24 male, for 2 years now, along with my 2.5-year-old son from a previous relationship where the bio father is not around. I really just went previous.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Oh gosh, so that was in reality. Okay. We've talked about taking the next step and discussing marriage because for me, I'm dating to marry, and he told me that it is the exact same thing he wants.
Okay.
So last week, he told me a secret that he's been holding on to for about a year of our relationship.
Did they say how long they were together?
2 years.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to pause right there. There's a comma, but I'm going to treat it like a period. How do we feel about that?
I feel like there's been an entire year of deception.
Right.
Okay. Depending on what's happening here.
Okay.
Because this could be something that he's just not comfortable divulging yet. And that's different than holding on to a lie or a secret. Because she said a secret.
Right.
You know, if he was molested as a child, that's just not something that is thrown out there all willy-nilly as a conversation piece. So like that comes out when it's ready to come out, not on your time schedule. You know what I mean? Like so
Right.
So that matters. So the context in that does matter, but I feel like there's something not forthcoming.
I agree with what you said. A year is a long time. A year is a really long time. And like you said, it does depend on the context. We have both said that there are things that neither of us know about each other yet just because it hasn't come up in conversation or we're not sure if we're ready to speak that into reality yet because we've lived with it in our heads for so long.
Right.
And that, I agree, is totally different from I met somebody at work a year ago and I have a full-fledged relationship with this person. I know all about their life and they know all about mine. And now I feel guilty about it. So I'm going to tell you.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So the secret is he's severely addicted to chewing tobacco. He is having trouble quitting and has been actively trying to hide it from me.
What a strange thing to hide.
Right.
And how? Like,
I was also thinking that how do you hide that? How is that a secret?
yeah. At some point, you had to have seen a spit cup in his truck. Like,
Or taste it on a kiss.
right. Now, Kith.
Sorry, guys. I'm going to derail for a second. Last night at the beach, we were just putzing around, taking photos, being lovey-dovey, having fun. And this couple walks past us, and a woman goes, "There's two manatees over there just 20 yards off the shore, and they're kissing. They just keep coming up and they kiss, and you can tell," my husband said, "you can tell it made her weak." And we walked over there, and as we were walking, my husband goes, "And kiss." Those are the kind of memories that stay with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to cry. We had a check-in a few days later, and he told me that's a big reason why he hasn't proposed to me. We had a check-in a few days later, and he told me that's a big reason why he hasn't proposed to me. Ooh, it would be so hard for me not to be angry.
Why?
Because if we have talked about taking the next step and we are planning our future together and we both know we want to be married, I could understand wanting to hold off because you feel like you're not the man you want to be my husband. Or you feel like you want to have us in a better financial situation to really live our life once we're married. Chewing tobacco is why you've stopped the evolution of this?
I can understand that frustration.
Yeah.
This is simple to me as well, because even though I think that shit's disgusting, she's been with him for 2 years. So like the disgusting aspect of it has not impacted her life in any way, shape, or form. This to me reads like, oh my God, you drink Dr. Pepper?
Right.
Can't do this. Can't marry you now. Can't do that. Nope. You drink spicy soda. We're not doing this. Like, you're not drinking my Dr. Pepper. What does it matter? Right.
I agree.
I am willing to say that if they're willing to hide something like this, what else are they willing to hide? Because you don't know your person. If this has been hidden for 2 years, you don't know them. This is technically an addiction.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I want to clarify, this is, in my mind, like the way that I'm speaking on this situation is an example for a broader umbrella of things. Multiple things can fall underneath this.
Okay.
You have unmatching socks, and that's why you haven't proposed to me.
Right.
That kind of level. Okay. Yeah. Back into the email. So today we had another check-in. I'm asking how his coping mechanisms are working, if he's made any progress with quitting. Progress? With quitting, etc. And it turned into a screaming match on his end, with him reminding me of the one time I went outside of a relationship and had a flirty text message conversation with a person at the beginning of our relationship.
Is that supposed to somehow negate the fact that you were unfaithful in the beginning of the relationship?
What do you mean?
Does that matter? Well, it was the beginning of the relationship. Well, that makes it even worse. And I guess not even worse is probably not accurate. But that line said that it became a screaming match, and it got thrown back to me. That's bullshit anyways. So like, to be clear, that is bullshit projection. They're switching the situation around so that they're the problem versus the chewing, whatever.
Right.
But for her to be like, well, it happened in the beginning of the relationship. Does that matter? You were in a relationship. Infidelity is infidelity. It doesn't matter if it happens 6 months in or 6 years in. Mm-hmm. That's who you are as a person. You chose to make that decision. And if you're willing to choose to make that decision 6 months or 6 years, it doesn't matter. You made the decision. Mm-hmm. Were you courting and not committed to each other yet, and you were talking to another person and those messages were happening? Because that's a different discussion. Because maybe they didn't have the "are we going to be monogamous" conversation. Like, but to be like, well, it happened in the beginning of a relationship. I don't give a shit about that. It happened. You're giving yourself a caveat so you don't have to feel guilty about the decisions that you made. You're trying to downplay what you did. You did it. Just say I did it. You don't have to add all that. At one point, I did this. That's period.
I need a second to recover.
From what?
Somebody in the chat said that unless he's swallowing it, meaning the chewing tobacco and not spitting it out.
Gross. This speaks to extreme accountability. right? When you learn to say exactly what happened without adding, well, she did or he did or this happened, all of the context to the story of something that happened in the past doesn't fucking matter. You could say that my ex cheated on me, so I did X, Y, and Z, keyed his car, broke his windows, whatever. The reason as to why you did those things is you justifying your behavior. Doesn't matter why you justify your behavior. You made the decision to act. That's what matters, was your decision and the things that you did. You were responsible for your actions. So it's important to just go, yeah, I did that shit. Could have handled it better. I was young, I was emotional, whatever. Like, you don't need to throw the blame on other people or start making excuses. Like, I even think saying I was young or whatever is an excuse, because you are just trying to downplay your emotional dysregulation.
I agree.
Yeah, I did that shit. Could have handled it better.
Yeah.
Move on.
I think one context where I would accept that I'm young statement would be, I've thought about it and I've recognized due to my age I am young and I have not lived life to the extent that others have, and I made a mistake.
Yeah.
That would be the context where I would say, okay, I get it, you are young. And the fact that you're able to recognize tells me that you did sit there and think about it, and this is a genuine coming to me and having a conversation versus I'm just young and I did it. So what? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's because there's an accountability and then there's proof of change.
Right.
I think it's important to understand, though, that that's a conversation thing and not an argument thing.
Correct.
And when you were describing your actions to somebody else of the things that are happening, the fact that it happened early on in the relationship doesn't change the fact that you did it. So when bringing that up to us after the fact doesn't help the situation. He obviously still hurts from it.
Right.
Which is why it got brought up. He could be deflecting, and that's the only thing that you've ever done to him, which is why he's deflecting and using that one thing. But it sounds to me, I think the reality of it is probably still eats at him a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm also curious as to how the conversation went, because if you felt like you were attacking him and that he needs to quit and da-da-da-da-da and nagging him, it's going to be a different conversation than how's it going, babe? How's the active addiction going? Are you struggling? Like, having a conversation about it's different than an accusation.
I came clean about this incident shortly after it happened, about 6 months into our relationship, and I had believed that we had worked through it. He assured me that he had forgiven me and we would go forward together. That moment was a huge catalyst for us. We both shifted into the traditional relationship. I started making our dinners and meals from scratch. I stayed home with my son and maintained our house. I started taking his boots off and truly serving him, not as a boyfriend, but as my partner, someone that I want to spend my life with.
Okay.
We both shifted and grew from that.
So it's important to know that there's a difference between forgiving and forgetting. And sometimes there's triggers that are going to happen, and those triggers are going to bring up old shit. Mm-hmm. So with that being said and everything that she just laid out, it does sound like he used that as a scapegoat for the argument, which is bullshit. It shows that emotional immaturity on his part and not being able to just have the conversation and acknowledge the fact that he fucked up.
Right.
There's a true strength. And just being like, yeah, I did that. Right. And it's not like a downplaying what happened or a fuck you to anybody. It really is just an acceptance. Like, yeah, I did that shit. Totally could have handled that better. Mm-hmm. I'm working on it. Sometimes I saw something the other day that said, sometimes the I'm sorry is not about your remorse. Sometimes it's about what they're going through. Sometimes it's about the situation. And the I'm sorry needs context. But you can have the I'm sorry and have it laid out across a whole lot of other things. And that validation can still help heal a trigger or a trauma or whatever.
Tonight, almost an entire year and a half later, he tells me the true reason he won't propose is because he still believes that I will venture out of our relationship again.
Okay, well, there you go. I was right. It's still there.
Yeah. So a week ago, he lied about it being the tobacco addiction.
Yeah. So he's also not forthcoming.
Yeah. Even though I have clearly grown with time and have been completely devoted to him and have respected him as well as our relationship, I have grown so very much as an individual and as a partner. I feel as if all of my growth was just completely shut down and forgotten. I am unsure of where to go from here. There is a part of me that believes this is his addiction talking. Maybe he's having a trauma response and trying to change the direction of the conversation onto me and wanting to deflect the accountability of his nicotine addiction.
I don't believe that to be the case at all.
Elaborate.
I don't think that's the case at all. I think that when it comes down to it, there was an infidelity there and he doesn't trust her at some level. And for a man to get married, there's a lot of risk involved in that for us. You know, you look at alimony, child support, and all the things that come along with a failed marriage, it is a fucking risk for us. And the more that's thrown in our face on social media and talking about how, you know, women initiate 70 to 80% of divorces and, you know, they'll leave because they're not happy where we'll stay where we're miserable and all of that nonsense that's just constantly fucking thrown in our faces. It's creating a narrative that it is not safe for men to get married, and we need to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row before that actually happens. So knowing that there was an infidelity there, knowing that there is an infidelity there, that seed has been planted. So whether or not she's done the work and she's gone and grown, there's roots there that will always be there. It might be a little itty bitty teeny tiny plant, but that fear of that happening again will always be there. Now, you may create new levels of trust and all of those things, but because that little plant is there, you're going to start looking for signs throughout life. If something changes, an attitude changes, your partner gets a new job and starts acting different, like the sun rays are going to hit that little plant a little bit different, and you're going to be reminded of those things. I don't think that's an addiction to nicotine. I think that's a bullshit excuse that he gave because he just didn't want to have the conversation. I don't think that's a reason for anyone not to get married.
Right.
I'm addicted to caffeine. Could you imagine if I was like, we can't get married till I kick caffeine? We would never get married.
Right.
Because I can kick it for like 2 or 3 weeks and then I wake up tired and it's just instant. Go right to the energy drink and have it, or I'll have a cup of tea or a soda and I'm like, caffeine.
Right.
I love that shit. So like, I don't know. I think the truth came out. I think that she's trying to now not listen to what he said and put it onto something else to justify the situation. And you can't do that.
Right.
When people tell you shit, you need to listen to them. Taking on a what if or I don't believe that. No, you need to really listen to what people are saying to you.
I saw something the other day. I can't remember the quote verbatim, but it was something along the lines of, every relationship, once the trust is established, it's 100% unwavering trust until it's broken. And it can never get back to that point again.
No, it'll change.
Right.
What do they call it? Kintsugi? It's the pottery where they put gold in to fix the cracks. So you can still see that forgot to do the camera thing. You can still see that brust. You can see that it was broken, but they took the efforts to heal and make it beautiful, but there's still that reminder that it happened.
I'm seeking advice from a different perspective. I can be emotional and I'm wanting to make sure I think logically about this. If either of you could offer a different perspective, I would appreciate it so much. If you made it this far, thank you. Please let me know your thoughts. So this has bothered this man for a year. And I'm not going to act like I know what his thought process is like or try to create a real situation and place it on him, right? This is me speaking from my experience. When I hyperfixate on something, it is nonstop in my mind. We are capable of thinking thousands of things a second. And that will be the one thing that I am thinking millions of times a day. And it has taken me a lot to get to the point to where I can start to compartmentalize and put things away. And when I am able to approach it rationally, then I will. When I didn't know how to do that, my life was constant misery. And there was a wake up of, okay, I'm going to try to be happy because things are what I wanted. I got what I wanted. This is what I've been asking for, but they still did that thing. And fuck them for that.
Yeah.
So he's tried for a year. And like my husband said, it takes a lot for a man to open up. And he did. So at this point, if I were in your shoes, I would go to my man and say, what has the last year been like for you with this? And I would try to learn as much as I can about your perspective. And once I understand what you've been going through, what's the solution? I'm not going to take it personally that you're upset or that you're still holding on to this because I did that shit. And this is the fallout that happens. This is the consequences of my actions. And you are far more important than my pride or my ego or trying to defend myself for the last year. You have come to me, there is a problem, and now we have to solve this problem.
I think it's important to note that he hasn't been throwing this in her face for a year.
Right.
He's been suppressing it, and they haven't had discussions. He needs to be healing. There needs to be conversations about what it looks like for them to move forward and reestablish that foundation of trust. Mm-hmm. And that could be an open phone policy. It could be a whole lot of things. Maybe they need to go to therapy together. But ultimately, what it comes down to is she's going to have to show him that she's dedicated to this moving forward. And if there's that seed of doubt in her, and he can't get over that, they don't need to be getting married. Mm-hmm. I mean, in reality, it's going to end up being bad for everyone involved.
Part of the healing, this could be the start of his healing, admitting to you that he has been hung up on this for the last year. And from the books that we have read and listened to and the research that we have done, part of that healing process, there will be moments where it's relived and there's going to be hurt. And there might be moments of validation that are needed or reassurance of this is what you want and you are happy with me. If that is what he needs in order to get past all of this, you need to do it and not take it personally that he's asking.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yep. I think that this should have happened a lot sooner than now.
I agree.
To live like that for a year, not having the trust between the two of you, knowing that he's had this seed of doubt the entire time is going to make situations look suspicious. Anytime there's a guy that comes around that could be y'all's friend, like there's going to be that, is she talking to him? If there's ever a day where he walks into a room and you put your phone down, he's going to assume you were texting somebody else. Like,
you mean face down?
Just down.
Oh, just down. Okay.
Just down. So I believe, and this is totally a me thing, that if you think that your person's doing something shady and you walk in and they simply put their phone down or they close their browser or they stand up and walk away from their computer desk the moment you walk in the room, you're going to correlate that to why did they do that just now?
Yeah.
You're going to question it. Even if it was they were already starting to stand up to go take a piss when you walked in the room, or they were done sending that email or whatever the case may be, it triggers that. It's no different than when you walk into a room and people laughing and they stop laughing.
Yeah.
Joke ran its course, but you're going to take that shit personal. Like, what are y'all laughing at? You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yep. You want to do another email?
Yes.
All right. Next email.
Hold on. Before we move on, let's interact with the chat for a minute.
Dope. I'm going to get up and get a soda real quick.
Lyric, why do you and Brooke both think that he's grasping for straws due to the reason changing? Because in this scenario, I see him being not truthful in the beginning. And the second situation, oh my fucking God, the Hawk Tua thing just made it into the chat.
Stop.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
I see this being a situation where he lied in the beginning instead of being forthcoming with her. And now that he is opening and being honest with his intentions and the fact that he is hurt, you guys are saying that he's reaching for straws instead of actually listening to what's being said.
I have something to say.
Do you? That's good, because I hate being sitting here.
What if that week ago was him testing the waters to see how she would react to him saying he was apprehensive about proposing? Because he knows that's what she wants for the future. And instead of saying two things at once, two hard-hitting things, well, what if I just ask her about, or just hit her with, I don't know if I want to get married because, or I haven't proposed because of this, and engage the reaction from that. If I am somebody who is constantly in fight or flight, I am always looking for ways to approach things the easiest. And because fight or flight is emotional mindset, I'm not thinking logically. So 8 out of 10 times, the way I approach something when I've thought about it emotionally just backfires. And he did something that backfired.
Yeah. I'm going to say on here real quick. Anything that we do in terms of these podcasts while you guys are live. If we read your comments may make it to the podcast because that was a good conversation and I don't want to cut that out. What was that face for?
I got a cake pop. But
and it melted?
It melted and it came off the stick and it's just a mess.
All right. So Brooks said, I agree that him being hurt is valid and makes sense on why he would have some random excuse. Obviously, if he's still hurt with the cheating, it makes it tougher for him to follow through on marriage. Correct. And the lyric said, I feel as though he's made a wall to climb for himself. I feel like he's trying to tell her he needs more time and grow and change. The tobacco change, the affair is the growth. So we're all on the same page. I don't think he's reaching for straws. It doesn't sound like you guys think he's reaching for straws either. It sounds like you guys realize he's being honest now, but he wasn't in the beginning. And that's the important part. He should have been upfront. He should have been forthcoming when this started bothering him. Mm-hmm. Babe, it's been like 3 months. And I know that you said that this wouldn't happen again. And I've been giving you a lot of leeway and faith in that you're actually following through on these things. But I'm still having insecurities. That's the conversation that should have been had 7, 8, 9, 10 months ago. Right. Okay.
Yep. All right. This is Patreon. Thank you. Chris and Peaches. I have written this email like 3 times because I am currently catching up on all the podcast content. That being said, I did join Patreon today because I wholly believe in the message y'all are delivering, have found communities to relate to my own life, and truly appreciate the honesty, integrity, and rawness you as a couple bring to these beliefs.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you. To start, the main reason I have rewritten this so many times is that I want to provide the detail you both constantly remind us supporters are needed to properly assess the information to give the best advice from the outside. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Sounds like a polite way to be like, let's fucking go!
Hey! What I wouldn't give to be on just a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
I wish I could shapeshift.
Why?
So I could just turn into a fly. It would be so much easier to give raw, honest advice if I could. They wouldn't even know I'm there. They would just go about their daily life, acting as foul as they do. Oh, but I would need like a little fly camera.
So you can show them?
Yeah. They hear just a little throughout the house. What's more of the sound? More like ch-ching. Because it's a Polaroid.
Yeah.
And then you just hear flapping noises with me fanning it. Oh gosh, I get too creative. My imagination's starting to come back to me though, and that's fun.
That's good.
Back into the email. A little about me. I'm a 38-year-old divorcee. I have 2 children, an 18-year-old son who's growing and thriving as he is entering manhood, and a 14-year-old daughter. At a very young age, I was diagnosed with BPD, but later in my life found out it was a misdiagnosis and then re-diagnosed with ASPD. Chris, listening to the podcast, really helped me to understand why the so-called professionals had misdiagnosed me. 1, ASPD cannot be diagnosed in children, and 2, both conditions, when stemming from the psychological cause, not the environmental or learned behavior causes, are stupid similar, in my opinion. So growing up, I always found empathy and genuine connections very hard. It wasn't until I was 25, incarcerated, and finally willing to become accountable that I found a psychotherapist that not only worked, but wasn't pushing an agenda. Once properly diagnosed, I started on my path collecting tools and really becoming better, and it's been a long road. At 17 years old, I dropped out of high school, got my GED, and joined the Army.
That good enough diploma.
Whew. I met the woman who would later become my wife while I was trying to fight a medical discharge. In the beginning, we both agreed we didn't want to become the standard statistic of a military couple and actually courted, held hands, communicated, planned, never more than kissed for the first 5 more. And never more than kissed for the first 5 months.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Clear eyes. Wow.
We both felt wanted and fulfilled with that choice, as she was also leaving the military and we were looking up to the future. She ETS, expiration term of service, aka gets out of the military, home a month or two before I lost the battle with the medical board and was sent home. During this time, we spoke on the phone for an hour or two every day and still managed to write letters every day. I felt like I truly knew her.
Oh, wait. Okay. Never mind. Keep going.
Okay.
I'll save that thought.
Okay. I was say, write it down, babe.
I am right now. I love having notebooks.
Oh, I should have grabbed my Kindle.
I'm going to pop on both cameras for a second. Hang on.
Okay.
So those of you who missed the journals that we created, I am in the works right now of putting things together with Chris Dennison, who is a leather maker, so that we can actually have true handmade, custom, to be better leather journals coming in the future and like things of that nature, because I carry a journal with me everywhere I go. I am a fucking note taker. And since moving away from my phone and writing things down, I feel like my thoughts and my notes are a lot more solidified.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to go grab my Kindle real quick. When I got home from leave, Fling told me she was pregnant and there was a strong possibility it was mine.
Wait, what? He just called them a fling?
Yes.
So what happened? Okay. So was he cheating?
Yes.
Okay. See, now that makes a whole lot more sense, because that line made it sound like he was saying the person that he just was writing all these letters with and courting and doing all the proper shit.
Yeah, the next sentence was, first thing I did was call my woman.
Okay.
Long story short, she decided if the baby was mine, it was not a deal breaker. This is where I made my first of many relationship mistakes. I say relationships strictly pertaining to serious extended relationships. Her and I were planning on me moving to Florida and starting our life together, and when she accepted the fact that I may have a child, I went out and bought a ring the next day. Later that week, I couldn't control my emotions any longer and drove from Pittsburgh to Jacksonville. I know, don't tear me up too hard. It was the first time I actually felt anything empathetically for anyone outside my immediate family. Why would we tear that up?
Because that ring was a guilt purchase. Okay, so
really? Because that's not how I viewed it.
Read it again, please. He admitted infidelity.
Right.
She said she could work through it, even though he's got a possible kid coming from somebody else. And the next day, he bought her a ring.
Okay. Her and I were planning on me moving to Florida and starting our life together. And when she accepted the fact that I may have a child, I went out and bought her a ring the next day. I took that as like, oh man, she's the one. Like I fucked up and she's willing to forgive me over that. And this is the worst thing I've ever done to somebody. And if I never do anything to this extent again.
That could be the case. Maybe I'm just cynical.
Maybe. When I arrived in Jacksonville, I couldn't find the house. This was before smartphones, and Garmin's were still like $300 or $400.
I don't want to hear shit about that in your technology. We didn't even have MapQuest when I learned how to drive. We had to fucking buy the Atlas.
A big ass thing?
Yeah.
Yep.
This is how we know people aren't going to survive the zombie apocalypse. Be like, all right, guys, here's where we're going to all meet up and do the thing. No one's going to make it there because GPS isn't going to work.
I'm not going to lie. I've started learning the geography, not just in our immediate area, but like also up in towards the north, because I feel like we would go to the mountains.
Yeah.
I'm preparing just in case. I'm also learning about like wildflowers and everything that we need on my end to survive up there. I'm not going to let you down in the end of world scenario, babe.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm trying my best. The kids are also kind of prepared. They know that we can eat rabbits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our son is really on that. I am the hunter. So every time we're playing outside, he was like, Mom, look, I just killed a mammoth and I'm going to feed the family. And I'm like, yeah, kid, look at you being the man, doing the thing.
Jenny said that she thinks that this, I thought the relationship was before the fling, or the fling was before the courting of the relationship.
Let's see. I'm going to back it up a little bit. 17 years. We both felt wanted, fulfilled, and the choice was she's also leaving the military. So she was home a month or two before he was. So it doesn't say how far along the woman was when she said that she was pregnant. But I don't imagine a 7-month pregnant woman reaching out and be like, hey, I'm about to have a kid in 2 months.
Right.
I would imagine within the maybe first 2 months, maybe 3 months. Yeah, there's no timelines included. I am going to read this as... Oh man, now I don't know. How do you want to approach this? Just
Keep going.
keep going. Back into the email. She had her mother bring her to where I had parked. Surprised, it was like 5 minutes from her house. When she got into the car, I had the ring in its box on the passenger side dashboard. She didn't even notice it. We embraced each other as couples do after a long period of separation. She still didn't notice it. I opened my door, got out, feigning a stretch, turned around and knelt down, and she froze and said, "What?" I told her to look right. She was ecstatic and instantly said yes. Well, that's good. Over the next couple of days, we had several discussions, including with her mother and stepfather, as we had planned to stay there while I found work and established a household for us. Within a week, I had a job, and with everything from my military separation was looking to buy a house. We began discussing wedding plans, and she asked when I wanted to get married. I responded that it was up to her. I was just glad she said yes. Instantly, she said, "Okay, what about the 4th of July, since we met in the military?" I asked if she really wanted to share her/our day with the entire country and every service member, and she said yes, and I was like, good, we got a year to find a house, plan a wedding, and start our life outright. She said no, this year. It was 2 months out. Here is my second mistake. I said okay, and just tried to make her happy.
Why is that a mistake?
Right, I was just thinking. You want to elaborate on that?
Nope. There's a lot of...
Camera.
I did.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of missed information in this. Missed opportunity for information in this.
Yes.
Because I don't know how long they were together before the other chick. I don't know if he slept around. Like that was not clear. And then this aspect, this is the second mistake because I just tried to make her happy. You could have went to a courthouse and signed a fucking piece of paper and got married. You don't need a big giant, ordeal. Family members and friends and all of that shit. A covenant between you and your person should be just that. The logistics of it only matter to those who need the big specific wedding, because they've been wanting that their entire life. I don't know. I just don't view that being the same way for men.
I didn't know how to lead. I knew how to protect and provide, but not preside. I let her take the lead. It was all downhill from there.
Okay, so that's where the mistake was. I get
can
that.
See that, yeah.
That I get. Only I'd have waited. It's like we're watching TV and I'm you.
I love that I think it and you say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her mother misunderstood a slang terminology due to my inability to communicate at 19 years old, thinking I was grown. What? We left Florida in a hurry, back to PA, lost a deposit on a house and a good job, all because I could not lead or communicate properly. And that's it. It continues on to the next part of the story.
Okay. They just took the accountability.
Yeah.
This happened because I fucked up. Got it. I was not capable, period. Full stop. Love that.
Fast forward 8.5 months, and our son was born.
Our son. So they got knocked up.
Yes, the very first time we were intimate, we conceived. A month after he was born, we moved into a house that I was able to procure, a decent yard, 3 bedrooms, driveway. It wasn't the greatest, but it was an accomplishment, our little fixer-upper. Through the 9 months, we had decided she would be a stay-at-home mother, at least until our son was of school age, and I worked multiple jobs to provide and did the best I could to maintain the provider part. I spent time every day with my family and tried to be present, but nothing ever seemed good enough. I was publicly degraded, belittled. I didn't realize at the time, but she was constantly hitting me, not hard, but also not in the intimate, playful fight type of way, and I withdrew. Happy wife, happy life, right?
Nope. Happy house, happy spouse.
Yep.
This idea, first and foremost, I think everybody needs to have a conversation when they start courting that states very specifically what you will and will not accept when it comes to physical violence. And that conversation for us looked like, if you ever put your hands on me in a violent manner out of anger, be prepared for me to reciprocate that. I don't care how mad I am at you. If you don't touch me, I will never fucking put my hands on you. Mm-hmm. But I don't give a fuck if you're a 90-year-old woman. If you attack me, law of nature states I have the right to defend myself. I wouldn't hit a 90-year-old woman. I would just bob and weave and call her old and curse her and hope that she falls and breaks a hip. But I'm not, you know what I mean? So but those conversations need to be had, and it needs to be very honest so that there is a clear expectation so that people know that that is a line that cannot be crossed.
Mm-hmm. As a woman, I also hate the phrase happy wife, happy life.
Why?
Because it totally removes the man from the equation.
Right. This is a partnership.
Right. We're a team. Back to the email. I was working as a car salesman and made a decent commission, decent enough to cover the bills and sustain life, but work a couple side jobs to try and get ahead and thrive. I was weary of conflict because I just wanted to make her happy and be a better husband and father than my father was to me and my mother. It got to the point where when confrontation was unavoidable, I would just leave. I went to friends' houses. My friend group had opened a recording studio, and I was good with electronics, so it was a good distraction. Never ignored my phone, always answered calls and texts until it turned into screaming.
I thought you said you were non-confrontational, so how's it turning into screaming?
I think maybe her screaming at him.
Okay. This is why men need to have a backbone. This is real simple. Everybody wants a vulnerable man, right? That's what we're told now. That's not what you guys want. You don't want a weak, frail, pathetic man. Mm-hmm. You want somebody who has direction, who can articulate honestly what's going on with them. And here's the example, right? Let's say I was a blue collar worker digging ditches and I got into an almost fist fight with my boss. And I came home and I had an altercation with my boss, and I came home and just complained, I fucking hate my life. I hate my job. I don't want to fucking do this anymore. I'm never going to have anything. That pity me mindset because I'm depressed and having a bad day is a whole lot different than if I walked in and was like, Todd got in my face. Just so you know, I put my hand around his throat and threw him to the fucking ground. So I probably lost my job. I don't know yet. In the event that I don't lose my job, here's my solution on what's going to happen moving forward, because we now have obstacles that we have to fucking overcome. Mm-hmm. That's me telling you what the fuck is going on in our lives.
Right.
Providing a solution of what I think needs to happen to correct the fucking problem so that you're not in the dark, you have direction, and I'm able to lead our fucking house.
Right.
That is what women want when they want a vulnerable man. They want to know what the fuck is going on. They don't want to be left in the dark. Mm-hmm. And they don't want a pussy.
Right.
So like, there's a difference there. You can't lead if you don't have a fucking spine. Mm-hmm. All right.
And in order for the woman to maintain a relationship with a man who's capable of communicating that way, is when that happens, don't go, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Dumbass, why would you do that? You put everything in jeopardy. The response is, you just hit me with a lot. This would be my response. Right. You just hit me with a lot. I would ask you if you're okay, and what are the solutions that you have placed. And I'd probably also hit you with, I'm having massive anxiety right now. Maybe have this conversation in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that would 100% trigger my anxiety. And it's not because you fucked up our life or you lost your job. It's we have savings. We have money in case the cash flow stops.
Right.
Due to past experiences, that primal, animalistic, we no longer have cash flow, we are going to starve, kicks in. And I would have to work through that before having the logical conversation of how long are we good for? How much funds do we have left? What do our bills look like right now? What's the next move?
Right. I also think that this speaks to a man's ability to find another job.
Yeah.
Right. If you're a blue collar trade worker, you can literally just go anywhere. Mm-hmm. And even if you got fired for putting your hands on your boss, a lot of people in those fields are felons anyways.
Right.
So when you go look for your new job and they're like, what happened? Dude got in my face, whatever. I lost my cool after months of abuse, something. You can have that conversation. It's not like they can legally call and be like, hey, what happened? Because they're not allowed to disclose that. When somebody calls you for a job referral, the most that you can say is, I would hire them back or I wouldn't. Because if they talk negatively about you to a future employer, you can sue them for slander. There's a whole lot of things that go into that. And a lot of people don't know that shit. So I could simply just be like, the last job I had didn't work out. There was too many altercations from the boss. He didn't know how to lead. As a business owner, somebody talking to me like that, I'm like, okay, this motherfucker obviously knows how to do his job and had a poor boss. Right. And I believe that people leave companies because of the managers, not because of the job.
Yeah.
So
I tried to make sure she knew that she was a priority. And yes, at times my son would come with me. And at times she would weaponize him and not let me take him as I left. This went on for about 9 months. We had lost all intimacy, and somewhere in the middle of the downfall, we celebrated our 1-year anniversary the best we could. Friends, family, and food. How did they get there? Like, it went from a whirlwind of, she didn't leave me, I'm buying a ring, I'm driving across the country to propose to her. She jumps in the car, he's on one knee, she's emotional, she screams yes. And now they're putting on a facade to feign a happy marriage to celebrate their 1-year anniversary.
Youth and guilt.
Insane to me.
That was a guilt purchase.
When you look at it that way, that's a lot to process. Because it's not the high of this and then the next step is this low. There's a million steps between those two. Crazy. I wonder what their relationship was like during that courting phase. Like, what were you guys writing in the letters? Were you guys working through disagreements or arguments? Were you guys yelling at each other at that point? Because if this was happening before the surprise baby, the maybe baby, that just sounded better in my mind. If this was who she was and this was what the relationship was, I would agree 100% that the ring was a guilt purchase. Right now I'm teetering at like 75, 80.
So let me hit you with this then. Because this is going to answer the question you just asked.
Okay.
Was he lived in PA? Is that what he said? He lived in Pennsylvania. She lived in Jacksonville. So they were long distance.
Yes. But they were in the military together.
Unless they're in the same unit, deployed in the same places, that doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
When you have a long distance relationship and you're only talking to each other at small spurts throughout the day and everything is good, it's very different than when you're with somebody 24/7. And the prime example of that is, how many people do you know that can have a good, successful relationship at home and work together? People get sick of each other. It takes a very special dynamic for people to be around each other 24/7 and not want to choke each other out. Like, people get really underneath people's skin when you're around each other all the fucking time. That is not a common thing for people. What we do, the way that we're around each other, is fucking rare.
That blows my mind.
Well, people need a break.
Yeah.
My gym time with Sean every morning is my bro time. That's the time to let the demons out, talk shit, be a man, and then go about doing the husband thing. Like, I have like, my day is sectioned out like that.
Right.
If I didn't have an outlet and you and I were like, you were the only person I was ever around and you were annoying to me to a degree, we would absolutely end up at odds. We know somebody right now who's currently getting a divorce because of this exact scenario. This exact fucking scenario. So when you have somebody that's long distance like that and you were interacting through letters and you're not together all the time and you can't be intimate together all the time, things are going to look a whole lot better than they actually are when you get together because you don't know who they are.
Right.
This would be the difference of seeing somebody on the weekends and then just moving in together.
Yeah. Back into the email. We still weren't intimate even on that day, all days. So, okay. Well, hang on. I was going to keep reading, but now I have to pause. We still weren't intimate even on that day of all days. Why would you expect it? So the children and I promise this ties in. The children and I are currently reading The Great Gatsby. That's been our bedtime story. And there is a point where they travel between, I want to say it's East Egg and New York, where it's just ash and it's dismal. There's no life out there. There's a dying restaurant and dismal apartments above a garage that doesn't work anymore. The whole road is covered in ash. It's just gray. It blocks out the sun. It's just smog, disgusting. If that is what you're living in, and that's how it's been for the last year, there would have to be something physical that cleans that up. It's not just going to go away at that point. That there's a pattern of this is what to expect when I come to this area, right? I can understand the hope of something happening that day. That false hope, when you're ignoring reality, is what brings you down more into a depression. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's January 2006 now. We have been married a year and a half, together for 2.5 total. My son was 11 months old, and things seemed to be calming down. I woke up on January 11th, fed my son, showered, made sure his diaper was clean, kissed my wife goodbye, and left for my long shift at the car lot 13-hour day. I feel like this is amping up to something bad.
Same. This is where the intense dramatic music would be playing in the movie.
Yeah. This is a day I will never forget.
There it is.
Yep. My mother called me. She never does this when I am at work. I sent a divorce mail. She called back within seconds and said, "You need to come home." I told her I couldn't. I hadn't made my sales quota that month and my family needed the money. That's when I heard my wife's voice, "I'm going back to Florida." I asked her if my mother, father, grandmother, and then stepfather were okay, and had no clue what was coming. She said that they were all fine, and her stepfather was there. She had packed what she wanted and was going back to Florida and taking our son. I'm scrolling back up to look for details before I formulate my thought.
Okay.
Or I verbalize my thought. So what I'm looking for back into the email are examples of how he has spoken to her in the past. Because there were examples of how he was publicly humiliated, hit. He would leave the house because he was scared to have confrontation with her. But there's no clear definition on like who is screaming on the phone, who's yelling at who when they're leaving the house.
Right.
There is accountability in this. This is also written in a way that really just paints her in a really dark light while also omitting the things that he's contributed to her leaving.
Right. Definitely think that her side of the story would be beneficial in this.
Yeah. All right, back into the email. Not back into the email. I do want to add on that I do know that he has said in the email that he was young and he was immature and all of those other things. But what did that look like?
Right. Put it on paper.
Right. Now back into the email. I died that day as a person. I lost the will to live, began self-medicating, decided if I wasn't good enough for the army or my wife or my son, I was going to be the best at not being good.
Okay, let me pause you for a minute because that mentality.
It's.
I understand that's a depression, right? Like that's the enemy. I know that. I don't. My depression and my unalive thoughts never came from a not good enough standpoint, because I have that chip on my shoulder of I'm gonna fucking show you, right? Like I become Muhammad Ali in my head. Let me show you how great I am. Come see how great I am. Like I want to fucking put that out there. I'm not going to try to think how to word this in a way that makes sense. I'm not going to let somebody else's opinion of my value determine my worth.
Correct.
Okay.
I also don't understand that mindset because my depression derives from a self-hatred that developed really young. I mean, an amalgamation of a lot of other things, but it was never born from a everybody hates me, so I hate me. mental illness. Back into the email. Alcohol and other substances kept me from feeling. The house was foreclosed on, and more bad choices followed, leading into my incarceration. God works in mysterious ways. Before my incarceration, a friend of my uncle's introduced me to the lifestyle. I think that was redacted. But at the time, without the rest of the work I needed to do with that, within myself, it was really just a band-aid, a facade of the validation, power, and respect I thought that I needed. The lifestyle was the first thing that showed me how to take accountability to do the dirty work, as y'all like to say. What's the lifestyle?
No idea.
So I started, and when I was properly diagnosed and was able to understand how my brain was wired, I kept getting better. I had 2 serious relationships since my divorce. My daughter's mother, who moved my daughter in with another man while I was in jail. Okay, hang on. I need to back up. Okay, so the wife had the son. Fling, as he called her, had the daughter. So that was one of the 2 serious relationships. Normally, I would completely agree with someone moving on or filling a void, but I made arrangements for the bills to be paid and her and my child to not want for anything while I was down. And she had my daughter calling the other man dad.
Hold on. Okay, look, this mindset
Yeah.
that you're going to go to prison and that people are going to wait for you while the life goes on the outside is dumb. Everybody in any type of game that's illegal activity knows that when you do your time, the world moves on without you.
Yeah.
Anybody that's done more than a year, you watch the progression. First, people are coming to visit you, answering your phone calls, writing you letters. Then the visitation stops. Then the letters slow down, the phone calls stop, and then the letters stop. That's how that works. If you fuck up and you're supposed to be the protector and you go and do a bid, you can't protect your family from inside unless you got an entire organization on the outside that's willing to do the work that you should be doing as a father. Mm-hmm. So when you start playing that game, this is the risk of playing that game. You don't get to be mad at that woman for moving on or having this kid around somebody who is not in prison.
Right. Doing what you should have been doing.
That. I've lived that life. So this is not me like, oh, well, you shouldn't have fucked up. You knew what you were getting yourself into when you got into it. This is no different than you committing a crime with another person and then snitching.
Yeah.
You know what the fuck you were getting yourself into. Keep your mouth shut, do your time, and come home.
Mm-hmm. Just to kind of add a woman's perspective, because I have never been the woman in that lifestyle. I've never been the girlfriend of, the wife of, the mother to the child of anybody in that kind of life. I have watched shows, I have read books, and from the perspectives that I have gathered, being a woman in that lifestyle is not fucking safe. And yes, financially, everything was taken care of. If you have ties like that and connections and money is going to keep flowing and somehow she's still getting groceries and all of these other things, that means that there's money. There could probably be product being moved still. She's a target. How could you be mad at somebody looking out for their life at that point? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a situation that could be plausible. But that comes down to the group that you have and the people that are loyal to you.
Yeah.
A whole lot that could be said about that conversation, but
Yeah.
this is not that type of podcast. So
Regarding the daughter calling the other man dad, where do you stand on that? How do you feel about that?
If you were there in that role being a dad, you wouldn't have to worry about that. If this was a young girl, 2-3 years old, and this is the man that she views as her protector, provider, and the leader of their household, I think that's to be expected, especially if she doesn't know you. That can speak on the mom's inability to be like, that's not your dad.
Right.
He's a stepdad, whatever. But if this person has stepped into that role, So there's not enough information here either, because if she just moved in and it's been 2 months, chick's in the wrong for that. Like, you shouldn't be trying to force a little girl or a child, period, to be calling another person dad in a month or two of knowing them.
Right.
There's just not enough information there. But if you're doing a 5-year bid and your kid is 6, fuck do you think was going to happen, bro? Like,
Yeah.
I'm also a very realistic person when it comes to prison time and the way that the world moves on without people and how fast things change while you're in.
Right.
I get it. So, like, I'm not going to put a false expectation on anything. We also don't know if this was the fling chick.
It is.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
so the baby's from the fling chick.
Yeah. The
where
daughter
he wasn't
is.
a part of the life anyways, because
We don't know.
he went on and got married and had a baby with this other person.
Right.
So we have no idea if that's even a thing.
Well, we don't know anything about that, because if they moved to Pennsylvania together and that's where Fling Chick lived, he could have been like part-time dad.
Yeah. Just
shared custody.
Not enough information.
That's where I lost respect and left any thoughts of reconciliation with her. Next was a 4-year relationship where she pushed for marriage but wasn't willing to communicate, and in my opinion, felt only her needs were to be considered. She ended up leaving me for her best friend's brother and gave me 4 days to vacate our shared house that was her mother. And gave me 4 days to vacate our shared house that her mother gave her after I spent 6 months and more than $20,000 remodeling to make it suitable for her and her daughters.
So you're mad that you invested money into somebody else's house?
That was your choice.
Were you living there for 6 months? Because 20 grand in 6 months isn't a lot of money.
Yeah.
Everything that I'm hearing in this is that it's everyone else's fault. He took accountability in the beginning about being young or whatever, but this literally is everyone else's problem but his. They did me dirty. Poor me. They took my kid away. They did this shit. I was in the lifestyle, whatever the fucking lifestyle was, because it was redacted. But like that's you made a bunch of decisions, bro. Like I don't know what to tell you in this. Hopefully you've learned a whole lot of life lessons, and this is just background noise. And there's something relevant to what's coming, because all of this shit is done. So what's the point in all of this? When you started this email, I thought we were going to be talking about the marriage that you're in with the woman who had your kid that you cheated on. And now we're getting a life story of what's going on that's not really relevant to fucking anything. This is backstory. Are we getting ready to play D&D at level 1 and we're hearing all your trauma so that we can understand why you're the loner, barbarian who rages? Like, I don't understand the point of this.
Continuing onward. Since that relationship, I have been single. I have tried several times over the last 7 years to start a relationship, but have found that either a man having standards and requirements like not going to the bar with the girlfriends or just not engaging in needless arguments or fights doesn't work for most women. Okay.
That's not true. It does work. It works for a lot of women, just not the type of women that you're going after. There are a lot of women out there, when you start courting them and be like, look, I'm not okay with you going to the bar and drinking. I'm not a part of that lifestyle. I don't want to be a part of that. I have goals and aspirations that I'm working for. And if we're going to court, I need to know that we're on the same page and we're trying to build the same future. And if she goes, that's not me, cool. Move the fuck on. She's obviously not on your level. If she doesn't want the same future you do, let her go.
Right.
We don't need to be together. If your entire existence is about going out, taking selfies with your tits out and your tongue out, and that's your existence, I don't want that. I'm trying to build an empire. I'm trying to make sure that I have generational wealth for my kids. I want to make sure that who I am 5 years from now can look down on the man that I am today, right?
Yeah.
If you're not on board with that, we don't mesh. If you need a party animal, go to Jersey Shore. Like, I don't know what to fucking tell you. We don't have to mesh. Find better quality of people, but be a better quality person while doing it.
Yes. The note that I made is, what is a needless argument? What does that look like to the emailer?
That's a good question.
Early on, very early on in our relationship, I came to you about something and you didn't understand it. And on autopilot, you hit me with, this is stupid.
I knew you were going to bring this up. As soon as you said needless argument, my brain went right to this conversation, and I almost said something about it. I got so much shit and so much hate over that because we talked about it on a podcast. I got ripped apart over that.
And I took it personally, as anybody would.
Right.
But then you elaborated for me. And once I was out of my emotional mind, I was like, no, I understand. And I was able to communicate that my anxiety needed this conversation, not me. Like, this is how I'm working through to be the best version of myself for you.
Right.
So sometimes those conversations do have to happen in order for the growth to continue, because I don't even remember what the question was or what the conversation was.
I don't either. I just remember the whole stupid thing.
Right. But in the moment, that conversation that I was having with you was world ending for me.
Right.
And because you were able to have the conversation with me, even though it was a stupid topic, I that part of me is dead now. Like, I was able to put that to rest and let something else grow there.
So just to elaborate a little bit on that whole this is stupid thing.
Okay.
Who you are now versus who you were then. You would process what was going on, why you felt that way, and you would come to me and go, hey, the other night this happened. Not throwing a you statement, this happened.
Yeah.
When this happened, I felt like, and this is what I need moving forward, and I can go, I agree, I don't agree. Why did you feel that way? Whatever. And we can have that conversation. If who you were now or then came to me now that way, I would still feel like this is a stupid conversation because you're hitting me with a whole lot of shit that's not relevant to what's really going on. And that's where I view a meaningless argument.
Yeah.
Because we're arguing surface level things that aren't really the problem, trying to unravel what the problem is. We're going to pull this thread and, really find out what the problem is. And that's where my head was when I said that shit back then, because I didn't understand why we were having an argument over. That was simple conversation shit to me. I don't like when you do this. Well, cool. I love you and I won't do that no more. Sometimes that's enough for people, for me anyways. I know that some people need to have the validation and the understanding, and they want to know that their person really understands, but you're not always going to get that understanding and you're not always going to get that agreement. Sometimes people are just going to go, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore because you don't like it, simply because their person doesn't like it and they want to make them happy. Right. And that's okay. You're not going to always agree on things. So...
Please understand, I'm not blaming women, and I'm sure that a lot of it is me. Whether,
Is that okay? Because I agree. I think a lot of it is you.
Whether it's my vernacular or verbiage, tone, I've been working on this specifically for a while, or any number of things that I could be doing better or more effectively, but nothing has worked out. So I'm going to ask you, are you trying hard enough? Because... You just listed vernacular and verbiage. Those are the same thing, right?
Pretty much. The way you talk and what you say.
Okay. So you listed the way you word yourself, your tone specifically you've been working on for a while, or any number of things that I could be doing better. So you're aware of the flaws.
Right.
But nothing has worked out. Well, why hasn't it worked out? Is it too hard to do it? Is it too overwhelming? There's a lot being said, but there's not a lot being said. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. I would begin with making a list of all the things I know that I can work on. And then I would start doing research on how to work on that. If I need to download apps, if I need to wake up earlier in the morning and start a daily routine list, whatever needs to get done. Therapy.
Yeah.
Back to the email. I make decent money, just at the six-figure area, but I don't live like I make that much because I just bought a house and have plans for my future. I don't mind spending money on dates or my potential woman, but I also don't dote on her as I don't want to be a sugar daddy. Most recently, while trying to have discussions about expectations, boundaries, and those things in the dating/courting phase, it has been met with hostility and resistance.
You're finding the wrong people.
Yeah. When we were courting, I never asked you for money. Not once. And I'm going to bring up my dental work as an example because that was $3,000 that I did not have in my bank account, but I needed to get these teeth out of my skull. It was causing pain, my jawbone to deteriorate. Yep. And I updated you on what was going on. We had a conversation back and forth about how much it sucks about unexpected financial surprises, whatever. And then I figured it out. And I updated you on how I figured it out. As we got further into our courtship, you were very open with me about how you were worried about tricking. And I remember that phrase specifically because I was like, what's tricking? I had to Google it on the fly. But I get that fear. And knowing that, because we've received multiple emails about men experiencing that, women getting upset because men don't want to spend all their money on them. It absolutely blows my mind how materialistic people can be.
Yeah. We got to keep in mind too that most men have experienced women who only want what they can get from the man and not an actual real relationship or longevity. Mm-hmm. I have watched women take advantage of men my entire life. So I'm one of those men who are overly cautious about spending money on women because of it. He said that he makes less than six figures, which means even if he was at six figures, it'd be a low six figures. Mm-hmm. And with today's economy, that means you're middle class. You're not a sugar daddy at that point. It's not possible.
Right.
And now what that tells me is you're dating women who probably make $20,000 or $30,000 a year that see that you have a little something and they want what you can give them. Mm-hmm. You're not getting quality of people there.
Raise your standards.
Right. Was that the end of the email?
No, that's not the end of the email. I was just thinking, it's absolutely wild. How do I want to phrase this? Because I will 100% accept a Taco Bell date, right? I am 100% okay with that, especially if the person is aspiring to be more with their life. I'm in full support of that shit. If the person can only ever provide Taco Bell dates, that's what you're going to get. If there are no aspirations, no goals, can't maintain a job for longer than 8 months, that is what they will be going forward. Raise the level of standards. That was a really hard lesson for me to learn.
I think it's important to recognize that quality of character does not equate to financial capabilities.
Yes.
You could have somebody that makes $1 million a year that lives on Taco Bell because maybe that's what they enjoy it. Or maybe they pay all of their bills off, put half of what's left over in savings, and then donate the rest of the money to no-kill animal shelters. You have no fucking idea. Mm-hmm. Now, if you have somebody that won't keep a job, that will live off their income tax return because they've got a bunch of fucking baby's kids.
Yeah. So
like that's their existence. They'll work until tax time, quit for tax time for a couple months, and then go get a job again and expect handouts from people. It's a very different conversation because it speaks on the quality of the character you're dating.
Yes.
That's why you court.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody that can only afford Taco Bell and they're a good-natured person and they can be a good father and they're a capable protector and they just don't want to spend money on frivolous things, maybe you should get to know them a little bit before you make that decision, right?
Yeah. You said that a lot better than me.
I also would like to point out that I like free dates. Mm-hmm. Last night we went to the beach. It cost us $6 to go through a fucking toll and like $1.20 in gas because we were on the Harley.
Yeah.
Fucking great 3.5 hours for me. And we've got money. So it's not like it's not like we can't afford the shit. Like I don't need to throw money around to let you know that you're loved. I can walk by a seashell and be like, yo, here's some pine needles, right? Yeah. Like, because you're not here for that. You're here for the interaction and the lifetime and not the right now. Mm-hmm. This isn't a level up for you. This isn't about what you can get out of me or any of that. Like we are living because we like each other. It's different than just fucking being with somebody because they have a credit card that you can max out.
Right.
And a lot of men worry about that. There needs to be a longer courting process to make sure that you're vetting your people properly.
Back to the email. I guess the short version of this email is the point of it. Do you have any tools to help me better navigate those discussions and situations?
Yes, the courting questionnaire, the check-ins, all the recommended reading, the podcast that we've been doing for almost 2 years, all of that is resources to make you a better person. However, you have to do the work. You have to be very self-aware and you need to do an audit of your personality. You need to do an audit of the people around you and find people who have better quality character before you start trying to date. It's as simple as that. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. It comes with people too.
Correct.
Stop fucking settling just for somebody because you think they got a fat ass. Like, find somebody that actually brings something of value to your existence and use that as a foundation, because relationships are transactional. You don't give a fuck what anybody says.
Every single relationship.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a financial transaction. It should be an enjoyment transaction.
Fun transaction.
Right. I'm giving them some of my time, and in response, they're making that time enjoyable. That's a transaction.
Yeah, because I don't like wasting my time.
That's it.
I could go on, and we can talk more about anything y'all need more info on. I just wanted this first email to have detail, yet not be a novel. I would like to close by letting you know that I am not looking for a relationship currently, but it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark either. Thank you both for being exactly who you are and sharing your beliefs and opinions with a cynical and skeptical world. I can honestly say there has been more than one time these tips have helped in other situations outside of a relationship, like I have implemented check-in meetings with my engineering team at work with work-specific questions like, as the controls engineer, have I been able to effectively communicate and direct in our projects? Have I provided the tools and support needed for you to complete your tasks? What do you think I can still improve on? So if you're able to control tone and verbiage in a professional work setting, translate that into a romantic setting. I always think that it's so weird. I understand why it happens because it's a sense of ownership. But it's just so mind-boggling to me that someone will treat everybody in their life sweet as cherry pie and then just completely unload and treat their partner like less than. Not saying that this emailer is, just a thought that came to mind with the things I spewed beforehand.
I have a thought. You just said a sense of ownership.
Yes.
Most people take a pride in the things that they own. Clean your house.
Yeah.
Keep your car washed. Make sure the oil's changed, the maintenance is done, because you want it to last.
Right.
So if you have a sense of ownership in your relationship, you're my woman, I need to make sure you're taken care of. Right?
Yeah.
It's no fucking different than taking care of an actual object. If you love something, you want to see it sustained for longevity.
Right.
So you can enjoy it for the rest of your fucking life. Your relationship is no different. That's why I think that people secretly start to hate their partners, and they just exist to get along versus actually loving their person and trying to make it work. Why are you looking at me like that?
You saying that triggered in my mind the amount of times I have heard somebody who is proud of their car going, yeah, look at that sexy bitch, versus somebody who has a rusted hunk of junk that they have to hotwire going, I fucking hate my car. Look at that piece of junk.
Okay, so now I'm going to take it a step further.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
There are people out there who buy a beat up ass car because of the sentimental value that car has, and actually put a lot of time, effort, money, and love into the car to make it what they envision it to be. And that's your marriage.
That was beautiful, babe.
It's simple. It's really fucking simple. You do for the things that you care about. You invest in the things that you cherish.
How long have we been recording for?
Long enough to end this episode and go on to the next one.
Word.
Do you want to do love stories on the next one? Because this one kind of took it out of me.
Yeah, we can.
So with that being said, guys, remember life is a choice.
So choose to be better.
And we will see you on the next one.
Bye, guys.